Hi guys, and welcome back to History Revision Success. Now, today I've got another one of my really fascinating stories about who really was this historical character that we probably spent much of our childhood watching on screen. And that person today is Pocahontas. So, who really was she? Did she even exist? And I guess that big kind of question of, was there really this kind of romantic love story between her and a white settler coming to America? Now, the tale of Pocahontas has become legendary. However, it isn't all made up. Here's the real story. Her story and her fate is wound into the fate of the English settlers trying to survive at Jamestown. Now, men who were rumored to have been driven to cannibalism. John Smith and John Rolfe, two men entwined in her life and very much defining characters in the real Pocahontas' life story. Now, she was once an emissary, then a prisoner, and always a political pawn. So listen to find out about her story. Now, Pocahontas was a Native American woman born around 1595. She was the daughter of the powerful Chief Powhatan, ruler of the Powhatan tribe, which included around 30 communities in modern day Virginia. So, just like the story at this point. Pocahontas wasn't actually her real name. And when she was born, she was called Amonute. Instead, she was nicknamed Pocahontas, which means playful one, because of her happy, inquisitive, and I guess, slightly troublesome nature. Now, when the English settlers first arrived at the Jamestown colony in May 1607, that winter, Pocahontas's brother kidnapped colonist John Smith. Smith was humiliated, it's written, and then his head was placed in between two stones, and a warrior was there ready to smash his head in. Now, to a white onlooker, to John Smith himself, this may have felt very much like an execution. However, at this moment, Pocahontas rushed to his side, placing her own head on his to prevent this attack. Her father then bartered with Smith and sent him away, and he lived to tell the tale. Now, this account of what happened is widely debated amongst historians, and Smith himself wrote many different accounts of what actually happened. Many believe Smith wasn't actually in any danger in peril, the placement of his head being more ceremonial than anything else. And it was from John Smith himself that this kind of rumor of the love affair started. Now, I guess regardless of Pocahontas's role as savior, she became known as a very important emissary to the colonists. She occasionally brought food to the hungry settlers, and in 1608, she successfully negotiated the release of Powhatan prisoners. Despite her role, however, relations did still remain very strained between those native tribes living there and the white settlers. Now, in 1609, drought, starvation, and disease ravaged the colonists, and they became increasingly dependent on the Powhatan to survive. Out of desperation, they threatened to burn down Powhatan towns for food. At this point, negotiations collapsed, and Chief Powhatan, Pocahontas' father, supposedly planned an ambush, and he wanted to execute Smith. Now, Pocahontas warned Smith of her father's plans. He was injured, and then he later returned to England. She was then given information that he died either en route or in England itself. So, unfortunately, the love story between her and John Smith wasn't to be in real life. Instead, it is thought she married an Indian man named Kokomon in 1610. She successfully avoided the English until 1613, when she was kidnapped by a man called Captain Samuel Argyle in the First Anglo-Powhatan War. Argyle informed the chief he would not return his daughter unless he released English prisoners, released stolen weapons, and sent the colonists food. Now, despite the risk to his daughter, Chief Powhatan only sent half of the ransom that had been demanded, and she therefore remained in prison. While in prison, or in captivity, Pocahontas lived in the house of a man called Alexander Whitaker, where she learned about Christianity and the English language. She later converted to Christianity and was baptized Rebecca as a new Christian name. During this time, she also met widower and tobacco planter John Rolfe and the couple decided to get married. Now, both Chief Powhatan and the Virginia governor, Sir Thomas Dale, agreed to this match as they believed it would bring positive relations between the colonists and the native Indians. And they got married in 1614, and they even had a son a year later. This did bring a season of peace to the region. Now, Pocahontas was very symbolic and was seen as very symbolic at this time of kind of the Englishmen's success in establishing colonies in the New World and converting Native Americans to Christianity. So, along with her young infant son Thomas, her husband Ralph, and a dozen Powhatan Indians, she journeyed to England. In London, she was received as a princess. She was called Lady. She attended plays and balls and even met the royal family. She also encountered Captain Smith while there, who she thought had died. So that was Pocahontas's life. And, you can see, while it may not have been identical to the Disney film, there are some definite similarities there. Now, I'm going to get to kind of the sad part of the story now and Pocahontas' death. So in March of 1617, Pocahontas, her husband, and her son set sail for Virginia after their trip to England. However, they didn't get very far, and she was very quickly taken gravely ill and put ashore at Gravesend in England. Now, some believe she came down with tuberculosis, pneumonia, dysentery, or smallpox. We don't know conclusively, and she was buried at St. George's Church in Gravesend. Her son Thomas was left behind with family, and he remained in England for 2 decades until he was 20, when he did journey back to Virginia to claim inheritance from his father and grandfather, becoming a very successful gentleman tobacco farmer. With Pocahontas' death, relations between the Powhatan and Virginia colonists began to decline. While she's been romanticized and sensationalized in movies and books, her real life was extremely significant, I guess, if a little less dramatic. She was instrumental in maintaining relations between her father's tribe and the Jamestown colonists, and is believed to have been the first Powhatan Indian to convert to Christianity. However we remember Pocahontas, I think what we need to remember is that she was a very strong, powerful woman, acting within a world where she was very much dictated, a world that was very much dictated by men. And for that, I think she's a real icon that should be revered.